Hey everybody, Frank here. So if you've been paying attention to my Facebook page, or you've met me at the Cabana Bar or the clubhouse in our neighborhood in the last couple of months, surely you've seen this. This is my little mini arcade project. I call it BMOCade because I painted it to look like the BMO character from the Adventure Time cartoon. I just wanted to show you what it looks like right now. I've made some changes to this in the last week or so. The original controls are gone. I replaced the joystick. The joystick was really kind of janky and didn't work all that good, so I've replaced it with this Sanwa type joystick. You can see where I had to drill holes through in order to make this fit in here really good. And I replaced the buttons. The goal was to go for some buttons that were a little bit less clicky. These still click just as much as the other ones, unfortunately, though. And I picked these out so that it would basically look like a Super Nintendo controller in a way if you just had, these four buttons, because that's the classic Super Nintendo setup. Have the blue one here, the green one here for the Y and the X, and then the B and the A. The B is yellow and the A is red. And then have the other buttons. Basically, this serves as the left trigger, and this is the right trigger. And then you use the two white ones as the start and select. Now, unfortunately, when I did that, this iCade cabinet that I built this on the back of, everything that you see here, this case that you see here is plastic. Most of the thing is built out of, it looks like half-inch type MDF fiberboard, and I had added a few pieces to it, like the marquee piece that you see here, and the back panel, and also the bottom piece on here. I cut all those out, painted them, and added them to the thing. So most of the original part, and the back panel is still, well, the back panel was always there, but that I mounted the screen into. But the problem with this is this bottom part here for the control box is a plastic material. So I can't change the shape of this or alter this or easily replace it. I have to work with it pretty much as it is, or I just have to start over. And you can see that I painted it, but over time it's, with use, the paint is chipping off this thing slowly. So I'm gonna have to touch it up and repaint it. It's probably gonna do the same thing again, I guess, unless I take all the controls out and laminate it or something like that. But I'm going to do a little project tonight, though, because when I did this replacement last Friday, but these controls don't really fit in this box very good, unfortunately. I couldn't close it completely, and the buttons are kind of getting stuck a little bit. I'll show some video of it later that shows, that demonstrates how much room it's taking up in here. But I'm going to go back and take this apart tonight. I'm going to replace these buttons with the LED buttons that I used in my two-player prototype that I put together. So I'm going to show some video of that as I'm working on it. So here's what my mini arcade looks like when it's disassembled. This is the control box. Like I was talking about earlier, it's not very deep. There's not a lot of room inside this thing. The iCade supported a battery that would power. There was a Bluetooth module that was in here that would connect up to an iPad, so that I can't really take this part out of here. It's fixed inside the cabinet, so I can't. Unfortunately, there's no way really to take that out of here and make a little bit more room. I could use it to power the little fake 25-cent piece here, but I would rather run that. I've been powering that off the Raspberry Pi module itself, rather than have to keep batteries in this thing. And you can see the controls. This is this is a USB cable that connects up. Here's the control scheme over here. It runs off. There's a USB controller, and then all the buttons and the joystick and all the wiring, all that connects into here. And then there's one output to that USB cable, and that runs to the Raspberry Pi module over here that's running the RetroPie software. So it plugs into this. This is a Raspberry Pi 3 Plus module with about 1 gig of memory built in. Pretty powerful little thing. It's more powerful than a computer from 10 years ago that was much, much bigger. And then it's mounted to, this is a screen from a company called Andycine, and it's made specifically to work with the Raspberry Pi modules, and it just connects straight up here with a little HDMI connector, a little short one that they give you. It connects to the back of the circuit board, one end, and then the other end connects directly into the HDMI connector on the Raspberry Pi module. And then it has other controls on the back for that you can't see, that are for the power, that are for the volume control, adjust the brightness and other kind of stuff. And there's a plug underneath here that I can use to plug the speakers directly into this screen, and I can just control the volume through here. Of course, I need to work out a better way on that, where it's actually, with the speakers that I have, actually can plug directly into this Raspberry Pi. They really need to go into the audio jack there, so I can control the volume directly through the RetroPie software. So that's it. It's actually a pretty simple thing. And in building new models of this, the hardest part essentially is building this framework, this box or the case to hold everything in. But you can see the plastic that this is made out of and whatnot. So the next step, start to take all these wires apart and to replace these buttons with the LED buttons. And here we are a little bit later, and you can see it's rewired. You can see I've got different wires there, little 3-plug wires that are different than the 2-stranded ones that were there before, earlier in the video. And I've got it hooked back up to the Pi module in the screen. And we've got a slightly different USB controller here. Now that's what's interesting, because it actually has some 5-volt outputs. So I have what I could do when I put the entire thing back together now. I could plug the little fake 25-cent piece LED. I could actually plug it directly up to these 5 volts instead of having to. I've been running it off the back of, I didn't mention this earlier, but on the back of the Pi module, you can see that there's a little 40-pin output here. And this is used for different programmatic functions on the, people do all kinds of different projects with Pi modules. And this is called the GPIO. It's used for output to other circuits that you could connect up to this thing, stuff that's really not standard. And I've been running it off the bottom, not the far bottom right, but the next 2 ones over it, that's a 5-volt and also a ground. Those bottom 2, the 38 and 39 position. The top left up here would be the first position. The very bottom right on this would be the 40th. So it's time to, enough of the techno mumbo jumbo. Let's see this thing in action here. So let's see if this controller works. Show you the front of it here. Put this down for just a second. Let's use the blackout. I need a cameraman to do this. So check it out there. So now it's a little more clearly defined now. So instead of just 2 plain white buttons there, one, that coin button works for the select button, and you got the little band icon like on a regular arcade to signify the start button. And then I've got the same colors. I've got the green and blue, yellow and red like I was showing before, and I don't have any black LED buttons or any other color right now, so we'll just do a mirror image of this to substitute for the 2 black buttons that I had on here, red one here and a blue one here, and the same controller, same SamWa controller. So here goes, power up. How are we looking? There we go, and they light up. So far, so good. Uh-oh, getting some screen blinking. That's one problem that I run into from time to time, power problem sometimes. If since the power for this thing all runs off of It's a USB-B type connector. So you have two different outputs, one for the screen module and one for the Pi module. And for this demo, when I use it at home, I just have this plug that they both go into. And when I'm using it, when it's portable, I have a cheap charge block Anker brand, ANKER brand that I picked up from Target that does very nicely. You can see BMO's face there. He's always happy to play arcade games. So let's see, how well is the controller working? Okay, we're gonna have to reconfigure this controller. So I'm going to have to get the keyboard out to do this to see that this is working. We'll stop here for just a minute. So here we go. We've got my little, it's a USB keyboard that provides additional input here. Uh-oh, screen blanked. Oh, don't blink out on me. Come on now. Hopefully we're not having power problems. If it keeps doing that, it's a more serious issue. So we need to do a little configuration on this joystick. I'm just using the arrow buttons on this keyboard right now. So we'll flip through. You can see the many different faces of BMO that I picked. He likes Nintendo, but he's not real crazy about DOS games. Seems to like the TurboGrafx. Ports, he doesn't really know what that is. So he's, and he's like RetroPie options. He's, don't touch that. Uh-oh, I'm afraid. Because something can go wrong if you start messing with this thing, if you don't know what you're doing. Oops, sorry, it's not that one. Wait a minute, let me go back one. I forget, it's not that. It's through Emulation Station, meaning I have to do the select and start at the same time. And then we need to do configure input. Are you sure you want to configure? Yes. Okay, hold a button on the joystick. So I'm going to hold down the yellow button. Wait, oop, hold it. It's harder to do with it like this. Let's see. Uh-oh. And why aren't we working here? Something's going wrong. No game pads detected. Okay, so got a tech problem here. I don't know why this isn't talking to it. So whoops, that might be why. It's slipping out over here. Come on. All right, let's try it again. Now we're detected. Okay, there we go. So for some, that USB cable is a little bit loose. And then to configure, so the D-pad up, that's going to be the joystick up. Hold up on it. And then down, left, left. Wait, no, it's not going left. Let's see. Hard to do this while I'm holding it. Let's see, left. Come on, left. Wait, oh, no, okay. Well, this is causing problems. All right, here. No, go back. All right. Don't do that one. Do this one. It's hard to do this one-handed. All right, well, having a little trouble with the configuration here, but the joystick is working so far. So let me get the whole thing back together here, and then we'll do the configuration, and then we'll maybe play a game here, see how well it's working. Now it's a little bit more manageable. I closed the case back up temporarily without hooking that piece back in. So let's hook this up now. Everything powered. Run it off 2 cables so I'm not having power issues. Also, plug the speakers back up here temporarily. So everything's lighting up okay. Looks really cool with the LED buttons. And loading up. There we go. All right. Now, let's try an arcade game. And then we got the sound. How about one we can do one-handed? Let's see here. Good old Pac-Man. Do this one-handed because I gotta, it takes me a minute. Not all these arcade games work because I have to go through, it's a lot more complicated to set up the arcade ROMs than it is the others. Okay, well we could do Frogger. Let's see. Because Frogger's one-handed. So okay, here we go. Let's do Frogger. All right. This won't show us that the buttons are working and everything, but oh well, I thought that was the one that worked. Let's see. Complicated technical explanation, but the games are all called ROMs, and the emulator for the arcade system is called the MAME emulator. M-A-M-E stands for Multi-Arcade Machine Emulator, because in all the for all the different arcade games that were ever made, Frogger, Donkey Kong, Pac-Man, Centipede, even later games like the Street Fighter games, Double Dragon, Final Fight, Cyberball. Think of any arcade game. They all have different hardware. I mean, some of them run on the same hardware, similar hardware, but there's lots of different arcade hardware that's been designed over the years. Oh man, we're flashing again. Now I've got that thing plugged into, interrupting my explanation. I got that thing plugged into the high power. It should be working okay, so I don't know what the deal is there. Screen's just blinking from time to time. It might not be the best USB cable, but so MAME, the multi-arcade machine emulator, it basically is essentially all this stuff is done through emulation, which means that it inside the computer module there in the software, it's emulating all this other hardware. In other words, it's doing in software what was originally done in hardware for all these different games. And so that's how it's able to run them. So this literally is the original arcade version of Frogger that you're seeing here, or one of them. It's a copy of basically all the chips that were on the circuit board in an arcade machine that ran Frogger. And it runs on Raspberry Pi now. Pretty amazing. We've come a long way with computer technology. So we're working good. Whoops. And it's hard to play this and hold the phone at the same time. But here, I'll at least get one fly here. Whoa, oh, ah. I can't do this. All right. I'm much better at this when I can really concentrate. Who ever heard of a frog that can't swim anyway? Okay. Well, let me get this whole thing back together again. So you can see it's working pretty good, except for some screen flashing issues, but doing nice here. So, and here we are now with everything put back together and the BMOCade completely reassembled. Got the speakers attached to the back, and they're plugged into the back here underneath. And that's the connector way underneath there. Those red and black wires going to the Andycine screen. So let's fire it back up here. I don't have the bottom and the put this down for just a second. I don't have the bottom and the back piece put back on because I'm probably going to redo those two pieces out of the 1/4-inch fiber board and put that on the back and on the bottom. There we go. Fire it up. Seems to run fine off this smaller charge block now that I reset it really good. Drained all the power out of it and recharged it. It was having some problems the other day. Well, let's find us some Pac-Man here. And play Pac-Man for a few minutes and close it. Yeah, excuse me. Play Pac-Man for a few minutes and close us out. No, I'm not doing any editing of this video. I should, but I'm not.